Okay, welcome to CIS 3115 Machine Learning. In this pre-unit, we're going to set up some of the software we need to run the our software. We'll be using a programming language called Python for this. Now, if we scroll down here, we'll see the kind of environment we're working on. So we're going to be using the Python programming language and some different options. Now, you'll have two options for what to install here, one through Google Collaboratory and another one through Anaconda. And we'll talk about both of those and show you both of those install processes in just a sec. But within this, we'll be using Jupyter Notebook. Jupyter Notebooks are a user-friendly environment for typing in code and executing code. Your assignments will be done and the lectures will generally be provided using Jupyter Notebooks for things. On top of Jupyter Notebooks, we'll be using two machine learning environments or libraries, one called Keras, which is a real user-friendly environment for how coding machine learning without much coding. And the other one is called TensorFlow, which is an advanced library that's used, comes from Google for doing advanced machine learning environments. So those are our two our environments. So let's look at how we are going to install those in our system. So again, you have two options. One is the Google Collaboratory and the other one is Anaconda. So Google Colab or Collaboratory is very similar to maybe like Google Cloud, Google Docs or something like that. It runs in the cloud. It's good for slow computers, even Chromebook like computers, and for basic installation. So if you don't want to do much install, this is a good way to go to do this. So the first thing we're going to have to do is sign into the Google Collaboratory, and you'll use your school email address for this. It's similar to how you sign in when you're using Google Docs or things like this. And then we'll try to run a simple program that'll print hello world just to make sure everything's working as we go. So we're going to click on this to open up the Google Collaboratory. It'll open up a new window. Now by default it might have a blank notebook or his hello conservatory that you'll see. We're going to want to create a new blank notebook here, but we first want to check your login. So make sure you are logged in, and you should be logged in with your CSS account. Here I'm logged in with a different account, so I'm switching to my CSS account, my St. Scholastic account, similar to Google Docs or Gmail. You can have different accounts signed in. So now we're going to create a new blank document here to get us started. So we'll go and create a new Python 3 notebook. So that's what we want. In all our environments, we're using Python 3 for this. So go to File, New Python 3, not Python 2, but the Python 3 one. And it'll create a new blank notebook for us to use. Now we're just going to type in our print command. We'll learn more about simple Python commands, and we won't have to do too much programming in Python here for machine learning, just the real basics. But we're going to say print parenthesis, and notice when we type in parenthesis, it puts a beginning and end parentheses. Similar, we're going to do a double quote, and notice it puts in both the beginning and the end double quote all at once, and then we can say hello world for that. So we've got that all set up. And again, you can actually copy and paste the code from Blackboard into here if you want, if you have some issues. Now, if we hit enter here, it just goes down to a new line. We don't want a new line here. If we want it to run this code, we're going to hit shift enter, and you'll see a little icon showing that it's running. The first time it runs takes a sec, and then it'll show hello world. So this shows that your program executing your environment's all set up. So again, it's relatively easy to set up this environment and get it working for machine learning. Very little to install. What we do want to do is set up, and again, you can learn more about Collaboratory by going to this Hello Collaboratory thing, but this tends to get into the more advanced features that you don't necessarily need to worry about yet. So I would stick with our basics here. Now, the last thing we're going to do is just save our sample. We're going to use the title setup sample 1. So here up at the top is the title. I can just click on that and change it to the new title. I'm going to use setup sample 1 for my title. Now the .ipynb, that's the Python notebook, Iron Python notebook prefix here. We want to, not prefix, suffix here, we want to keep as the extension for that file. Now the last thing we want to do is save this. These notebooks don't automatically save yet, so I'm going to go to File, Save, and that'll save a copy of them for us to work with. So then we can close this, and we're going to then look at the other option. So this was the first option, Google Collaboratory, that we set up. So now we're going to look at our second option, which is called Anaconda Python. Anaconda is a framework for installing Python in a machine learning environments and the Jupyter notebooks all together. There's an install for both Windows and Macintosh computers. If you have a faster computer, this is a good option for this. So we're just going to hit the download button and go here. There's a Mac and a Windows version. I'm on a Windows machine, so I'm going to switch over to Windows. And I'm going to click on the installer. You need the 64-bit installer for the work we have, so click on 64-bit installer here and we'll download that. Just save it by default somewhere. Now we don't need to worry about this cheat sheet, so I'm just going to close this window once the download has started. And we'll wait. That's on my machine. That's going to take almost 10 minutes to do this download on my slow internet here. So we'll wait for that to work through. Now one thing we'll find is this is the Python 3.7 version. We will install that. So I'm going to open that up and install it. Now if you're on a Mac, you're going to have to do a slightly different install. I'm unable to show you that, unfortunately, but I'm just going to walk through this install here. We're mainly going to choose the default options. I'm just going to install it just for me. Although I could do it for all users, it doesn't really matter depending on your machine and your privileges. The default directory is fine. One thing I will generally want to do is add Anaconda to my path variable. So if you click on that, that helps you for some of the more advanced features of Anaconda later on in the course that we're going to work on. So, and then we'll hit install. It's a non-trivial install, so it'll take a little while to do. So we'll let that run through. Now, as that's wrapping up, we're going to have to do some changes to things. The Python environment that you're working on is Python 3.7, but we really need Python 3.6 in order to run the TensorFlow libraries down below. So the TensorFlow libraries only work with Python 3.6. So we're going to have to change and do some different installs for that. Okay, so Anaconda is finished up here. Now there's also an option to install VS Code from Microsoft. We're going to be using Jupyter Notebooks instead of VS Code, so we're not going to need to install that. So you can just skip, hit the skip button to skip over that install for VS Code. We don't need that. And again, I don't need to get this additional information right now. Okay. So now we're going to go back here and install TensorFlow and Keras for this. So we're going to go to the Anaconda prompt. There's a new window here. Generally we'll be using Jupyter Notebooks, but we're going to use the Anaconda prompt for do these initial installs. Okay, so the first command we're going to have to do into our prompt is our conda install Python 3.6 for Python. So probably the easiest way is just to highlight that command and do a copy and paste so you get that the wording exactly right. So again, we'll bring up our Anaconda prompt here. And we'll copy and paste. You can use Control C for copy and Control V for paste here, so you can highlight that, or you can right click and do copy and paste and get it in here. Now this is going to take a while to do the install, and it's going to go search its environment. It has quite a few things installed, and it'll tell us what things have to be upgraded or downgraded to Python 3.6. It lists a bunch of stuff. And then we can just hit OK, or I mean proceed, yes, no, and we'll just type in Y for yes then, and it'll go start installing things. And we'll let this run. Again, this is a non-trivial install. It'll take a couple minutes to do this install as we go. So once it's all done, we'll get our prompt back for us. So there's our prompt again, and we're going to go to our next command, which will install TensorFlow. So we're going to highlight that command, copy and paste that. So Control C, go over to our prompt and Control V and hit enter. And again, this will take a while to install also. So we can wait for these to install. And then the last thing we're going to install is the Keras package. So once this is all done and run, TensorFlow installs quite a few packages along the way, so you'll see it go through those. So once all those packages are installed, you can go and take the command to install Keras. And again, we just have to do this one time on our machines to get it set up. So again, we're going to copy and paste this install. We're using an installer called pip, P-I-P. It's a common installer in certain environments, particularly Linux environments, but it can also be used in Windows and Mac for installing things. So we'll do our pip install of Keras and get that. And now once that is all done, we're ready to go. So now we're just going to run Jupyter Notebooks, go back to our Anaconda start menu and go down to Jupyter Notebooks and run this. So this will open up a server in the background. This is the background server window. You want to leave that background window, and then it'll open up a browser for you, and you interface through the browser here. So we need to choose a folder to store these in. In Windows, we usually store it in the Documents folder. So we'll go in there, click on that. Now I'm going to create a subfolder in my Documents folder for this. So I'm going to go New Folder and create that. It creates an untitled folder here. If I, let's see, now I go back and click on the little box next to it, and then I can rename it. And I'm going to call it like CIS 3115 Notebooks or something like that. And we'll create that. Now I can go in that folder and I can create my documents. Now we're going to create a new Python 3 notebook again. So very similar to how we did in Collab Lab, we're going to go new Python 3. It'll create a new notebook for us here. And there's a spot where we can enter our code here. And we're going to enter this code that says print hello world here. So again, I can copy and paste that or just type it in here. And again, if I hit enter, I get a new line. So I don't want to just hit enter necessarily unless I wanted to add more lines, but I don't need any more lines. So I'm going to hit shift enter. So enter goes down to a new line, but holding down shift and hit enter will execute that line and go. You can also hit control enter, which just stays on the current one. So either control enter or shift enter will run that here. And so here's our output. So we know everything's running correctly and everything's set up correctly. So the last things we need to do is rename our notebook and save it. So we're going to rename this. So we'll go up to Untitled here at the top, click on that, and then change it. So we'll call it Setup Sample 1 or something like that. Hit the rename button. And then we're going to save this. And when we run it, so we're going to go under File and choose Save to save this option for us. Now, the last thing we also need to do is close this. Now, the one difference between Anaconda and Colab is Colab runs in the cloud. Anaconda is going to run on your own machine, and the notebook will keep running here. So although we've saved it, and if we close this window, as long as our background server window or the black window is up and running, it will run in the background. Now, it's not uncommon for me for advanced stuff to be running that for 8 or 10 hours in the background. And so you don't always have to have this web browser up and connected to this. But because of this, we've got to close. When we close it, we have to do a close and halt. So let's see if I can get it on the screen here. But I'm going to scroll down and get the close and halt. And I'm going to click on that. And that will close the window and halt it so it's not running in the background. So that sets up the basic environment for running Anaconda or Colab. Now you can choose one or the other, whichever one you prefer to run. They both run a Jupyter Notebooks. Actually, Colab is a slight variation of Jupyter Notebooks, but very similar. The same sort of files can be opened on both and run on both. So you can choose either one or both environments for you to use in this course.